That's what I kept telling myself as I stared at my reflection in the cracked mirror of my tiny apartment. My gray hair looked thinner than it had a few months ago, my hands felt more tired, and my eyes, those eyes had seen enough life to know the world rarely offered second chances. For most of my 62 years, my life had been simple and predictable. I worked as a school janitor, took the bus home every evening, cooked my dinner, and watched the same television programs until I fell asleep. The days blurred into one another, and so did the years. When I was younger, I had dreams. I wanted to write stories, to draw, to teach children how to dream beyond their textbooks. But somehow, life kept me busy with the necessities: paying the rent, putting food on the table, keeping my head above water. Passion and creativity felt like luxuries for other people, not for someone like me. And then one day, everything shifted. It started on a rainy morning. The sky was the color of polished steel, rain tapping against my window like an impatient visitor. I had just put on my coat to leave for work when my phone rang. I rarely got calls. My heart skipped a beat as I answered, expecting bad news. "Mr. Arthur?" a gentle voice asked. "Yes," I replied, my voice more brittle than I intended. "This is Alina from the community college. Our records show that you once inquired about joining our adult education program. We have an opening for a creative writing course starting tonight. Would you be interested in attending?" I stood there, rain splattering against my window, my heart thumping like it hadn't in years. Creative writing. It felt like someone had plucked a forgotten dream straight from my past and set it gently in my hands. But my first thought was a practical one. I'm too old. What would I do in a writing class surrounded by people half my age? "I appreciate the call," I replied politely, "but I don't think that's for me. Maybe when I was younger." There was a pause on the other end of the phone. Then Elena spoke again, her voice warm and sincere. "You're never too old to discover something new, Mr. Arthur. Trust me. Some of our most talented students began their journeys much later in life." Those words stayed with me long after I hung up. That evening, as I sat with my lukewarm cup of tea, Elena's words echoed in my mind, "You're never too old." The clock ticked loudly, the rain still fell outside, gentle now, as if coaxing me toward a choice. I thought about my past, about the stories I'd never written, and the dreams I'd set aside. And for the first time in years, I felt a flicker of something hopeful stirring inside me, like a candle flame in a darkened room. I don't know what came over me, but I grabbed my old raincoat, pulled my scarf tight, and headed out into the misty evening. When I walked into that small, bright classroom at the college, my hands trembled slightly. The room smelled faintly of coffee and new paper. A circle of chairs was arranged neatly, and a few people, men and women of different ages, looked up with welcoming smiles. A woman with kind green eyes introduced herself as Elena, the very one who had called me that morning. "Welcome, Arthur," she said warmly. "We're so glad you decided to come." As I took my seat, my heart was still beating like a wild drum, but this time it wasn't from fear, it was from something else entirely. Hope. The first few classes weren't easy. I had never shared my thoughts with strangers before, let alone strangers who were experienced and passionate. My hands felt stiff when I tried to write. My words felt clumsy. But each week, Elena encouraged me. "Your stories matter," she'd say, and slowly my pen moved more easily across the page. I began writing about my childhood summers spent at my grandparents' farm, the sound of crickets at dusk, and my mother's voice humming lullabies in the kitchen. With every sentence, I felt my life open up like a book long left unread. And then, one day, Elena gave us a new assignment, to write a personal story that changed us. That was when I knew it was time to write about my fears of becoming invisible with age, my belief that my best years were behind me. The story poured out of me like water, raw and unfiltered. I wrote about the small habits that kept me going, the fears that had kept me from reaching out for help, and the phone call that had cracked my world open again. When I read my piece aloud in class, my voice trembling, the room was so quiet you could hear the clock on the wall. And when I finished, everyone in the circle looked at me with gentle understanding, like they truly saw me for who I was. That was the moment I realized that it wasn't too late. That writing class became my sanctuary. Each week, I looked forward to the simple joy of sitting down with my thoughts and putting them into words. I met people who shared their stories: a widower who wrote poetry for his late wife, a teenager who kept journals about her struggle with anxiety, a single mother who wrote beautiful, aching essays about her children. We became more than classmates. We became friends bound by the power of expression. As the months passed, I noticed a change in myself too. My steps felt lighter. I smiled more often. People at work commented that I looked happier. "What's your secret?" they'd joke. And I'd smile because my secret wasn't a miracle. It was simply a choice to believe that life is never too short to embrace something new. When I look in the mirror these days, my gray hair and tired hands are still there. But my eyes, they hold a light I thought was long gone. I am no longer just a janitor. I am also a writer, a storyteller, and every word I write reminds me that age is only a number, and as long as I can dream, I am never too old for change.